Program Director, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an honor for me to have this opportunity to address the Association of Palestinian Arab Canadians on the occasion of the celebration of the 8th annual Palestine Day in Ottawa, Canada. I am really pleased that the association works in close solidarity with the Palestinian people at the time of their greatest need. It is incumbent on all of us as humanity to do everything we can to support justice for the Palestinian people, both in the West Bank and Gaza, as their suffering is incalculable and requires urgent action and concrete action from us in the international community. Democratic South Africa has strongly supported the just cause of the people of Palestine for freedom, democracy, and justice since the inception of our democracy. This is a result of our commitment to international solidarity with all those who suffer oppression, colonialism, and associated injustices. We decided that we should utilize existing international legal mechanisms in an effort to end the cruel onslaught that began against the people of Palestine in October last year. We have approached the International Court of Justice on 3 occasions since October in the hope of saving lives in Gaza and bringing an end to the brutal military onslaught that continues unabated and with Israeli impunity. We will pursue our case until there is justice for the over 35,000 civilians who have been killed over the past 7.5 months and the thousands more who lie unaccounted for under the rubble of hospitals, residential buildings, schools, universities, and every manner of civilian infrastructure. We took Israel to the ICJ 20 years ago in 2004 over the building of the apartheid wall. The court ruled that Israel must put an immediate end to the violation of its international obligations by ceasing work on construction of the wall and dismantling those parts of that structure situated within the occupied Palestinian territory. Israel, as has now become common practice, ignored the ruling with impunity and expanded the wall. This demonstrates how international organizations have failed to compel states to abide by international law, and confirms our own belief as South Africa that there is need for significant reform of United Nations bodies and international institutions responsible for oversight and implementation of international law. We believe it does not make any rational sense for institutions to exist and to be charged with such protection, but not to have the capability to enforce international law. Hence our call that all states should be extremely concerned at the failures of the United Nations Security Council, at the inability of the ICJ to enforce the measures that it handed down with respect to the ICJ case of South Africa. As you all know, Israel is supported by several powerful countries that accept its neglect of international law while consistently insisting that African and other developing regions of the world should abide to the prescripts of international law. This is a practice of double standards which we reject with contempt. In January this year, our country took Israel to the court for violating its obligations under the Geneva Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the territory of Gaza. As you all know, Israel was one of the first signatory states to this very significant convention. Our move was significant as it was the first time a country of the South had brought a critical issue of international peace and security to the International Court of Justice and launched a direct challenge against a country of the North which has extremely powerful supporters. We had approached the court to protect the civilians of Gaza twice since our case earlier this year. We've requested additional provisional measures to prevent Israel from continuing its onslaught and obstruction of humanitarian aid, especially given the catastrophic situation on the ground in the occupied Palestinian territories. In our January approach, the court ordered that Israel shall take all measures within its power to prevent all acts of genocide, and to, they said, take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have reported that Israel has failed to take even the bare minimum steps to comply. It has continued bombardment, ground offensive, and now the use of starvation as a weapon of war by preventing the delivery of urgent humanitarian aid. Within a month of the court's ruling, the number of trucks being allowed to enter Gaza had decreased by 40%, according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The result has been that Gaza is hurtling toward a famine constructed by Israel. On May 10, we returned once more to the court to seek an urgent order for the protection of the Palestinian people in Gaza from grave and irreparable violations of their rights under the Geneva Convention, given Israel's ongoing military assault on Rafah. Israel's assault on Rafah has threatened the very survival of Palestinians in Gaza as an entire group. South Africa contends that the attack on Rafah worsened the prevailing situation and has caused irreparable harm to the rights of Palestinians, and that the situation has changed significantly since the court's order of March 28, where we sought further provisional measures. It is rather worrying that our approaches to the court almost become a baseless act in that enforcement is entirely absent, and it is now up to us as activists in our various nations to consider what further actions we may take as human beings in order to further protect the people of Palestine. We called in May this year for urgent intervention and investigations of all actions that continue to cause irreparable prejudice to the rights of Palestinians, including the use of artificial intelligence for targeted killings. We requested that the court indicate further provisional measures, which include that the State of Israel immediately withdraw and cease its military offensive in the Rafah Governorate. South Africa also requested that the court order Israel to immediately take all effective measures to ensure and facilitate the unimpeded access to Gaza of UN and other officials engaged in the provision of humanitarian assistance and assistance to the population of Gaza. We asked that access should also be given to fact-finding missions, internationally mandated bodies or individuals, investigators, and journalists to assess and record conditions on the ground in Gaza and to enable the effective preservation and retention of evidence. Since the start of the military killing in Rafah, Israel has seized control of both the Rafah and Karim Abu Salam crossings, effectively controlling all movement in and out of Gaza and cutting off all critical humanitarian and medical supplies, goods and fuel. Israel further prevented medical evacuations and has treated evacuation zones as extermination zones, as evidenced by the destruction of hospitals in Gaza and the discovery of mass graves in other major hospitals in the Strip. The court's landmark ruling on May 17th ordered Israel to halt its military operations to ensure that no further harm comes to Palestinians as a result of Israel's military actions. The order is groundbreaking, as it is the first time that explicit mention is made for Israel to halt its military action in any area of Gaza, and specifically in Rafah. The ruling is a de facto call for a ceasefire and orders the major party in this conflict to end its belligerent action against the people of Palestine. The court has also ordered Israel to allow access to investigators appointed by the United Nations to investigate actions that would be tantamount to genocide in the whole of Gaza. This is important as it allows for independent experts to go into areas that journalists have been prohibited from entering. It also allows those of us engaging in legal action to have independent and verified United Nations experts doing the investigations. We will be approaching the UN Security Council with this order in hand in the hope that they will act on it. This order, like the other orders we sought from the court and actually got, is obligatory and binding. Third-party states and state parties to the Genocide Convention are obliged to respect the orders of the court and need to comply with them. Again, our countries have a responsibility, as well as our governments, to respect international law and international institutions. Those countries and officials that continue to arm and fund Israel's war machine will be liable for prosecution in the future, and civil society organizations will most likely take up such cases and hold those who have facilitated this genocide accountable by taking them to court. South Africa remains of the view that the necessary conditions for the effective implementation of the court's provisional measures as a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. We call on the international community, including the allies of the State of Israel, not to turn a blind eye to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. The gross human rights violations perpetuated by Israel have escalated to incomprehensible levels of cruelty, hate, and extreme violent oppression. The world must do far more to end the persecution of Palestinians, including that of thousands of innocent women and children. If there is non-compliance with the court's directives, it is up to the global community to ensure adherence when it comes to the sanctity of human life. We've also welcomed the decision by the ICC Chief Prosecutor, Karim Khan, to request the ICC judges to issue arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and his Defense Minister. This decision is significant as it indicates, finally, that the court is not only set up to prosecute Africans or those from the global south, but is also able to hold Western countries with powerful allies accountable for their war crimes and crimes against humanity. This is what we need at this historic juncture, to renew our faith in our international institutions, which are supposed to dispense justice equitably. It is time for the global community to take meaningful action. We hope that the anti-apartheid movement on Palestine will become a global force, as it did against apartheid in my own country, South Africa, and contributed in that way toward bringing down the oppressive and brutal apartheid system. Without active global solidarity, where ordinary citizens and shareholders demand disinvestment from companies that do business with Israel and support its military machine, it will take much longer to change the reality for Palestinians and for them to win their freedom and self-determination. History will judge our inaction as complicity, and thus it is vital, as you reflect on these matters and the sad plight of the people of Palestine, that you decide on what action you will take to bring notice to their plight and to begin the process toward an end to the injustice the people of Palestine have suffered for more than 7 decades. I thank you for having invited me to speak to you, and I hope you will have successful deliberations. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.